Well, thank you again for coming. This is our last series for the fall. We'll start again in January, so look out for that after the holidays. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on introducing our panel. They are definitely alumni. We have Mr. Grady McQuaid from Coonanagle. We have Marcia Greer from Delta, Kim Boozman from Coonanagle, and Lydia Hall from Georgia Pacific. They all have a very good story to tell us. They all have some good lessons to learn. They're all in the early stages of their careers, which they're all moving up in their careers, which is a great, great thing to hear. And so I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to start with Grady, and we'll just run down there. And every time we switch speakers, we're going to do another drawing. Definitely questions and answers. We got a program that will have plenty of time for Q&A. So write down your questions, because I know what it's like when you think about it and you forget it, okay? Unless you want them now, I want you to hold the questions until we do Q&A, okay? Because it'll be good. All right, Grady?
All right, well, I'll kick this thing off. My name's Grady McQuaid. I'm currently the AOG and engine manager for the Department of AOGs and Engines at Coonanagle. I know most of you probably don't know what AOG stands for, so I'll elaborate. That's aircraft on ground. Basically, when you have an airline and they've got a plane that needs to fly, and it can't fly for whatever reason because, you know, parts are broken or whatever, wings fail, they call our department and they say, hey, we've got a spot, or we've got a broken plane, we need you to send a part from this place overseas, you know, Zurich, Switzerland, China, wherever. And we need it yesterday. So it's very fast-paced. You know, Coonanagle is mostly known for their ocean shipments, which takes 2-3 weeks of transit time. We're looking at 24 hours or less. So on call 24/7. It's always fun. But just to give you some backstory, so I graduated December of 2010 from Clayton State. I was a marketing major, minor in finance, and hopefully, like none of you are doing, I waited until about November to start getting my resume out there. So it was a bad move on my part. So obviously December came, I graduated, didn't have any job prospects, getting a few interviews here and there, but nothing's panning out. Oh, okay, sorry. So nothing's panning out, and then finally I get a job with this company called First American Credit Union in the illustrious field of door-to-door credit card processing sales on 100% commission. Fantastic job. I'd highly recommend it for all of 2 months, which is as long as I lasted. After that, fortunately, I had many friends from college, and through networking, I was able to land a job at Coonanagle. So I started out on an account that basically managed these machines that allowed doctors to run tests on patients for new medicines. So we'd set up for trade shows. So we'd have to load up the trade show, get everything set up for the hotels, break everything down afterwards, and then distribute all these machines across the country. Did that for about 2 years. Got tired of it after a while, and then I moved over to our Delta account, which at Coonanagle on the aerospace side, that's a very big account for us. It's actually the largest account that we have. And I did that for all of about 6 months, and then I moved over to the AOG desk as a supervisor. Worked that for about a year, and then I moved up to the manager slot once that opened up. And I've been in this position for about a year, and we'll see where things take me from there. I would definitely say, things that I did that helped me move up as fast as I did was definitely networking. I would highly recommend all of you to do that as much as possible, because anytime there was an opportunity when my boss would say, hey, I'm going out to dinner with these customers, do you want to come? Yes, every time. do you want to go meet the president of, our Atlanta branch? Yes, every time. Like, find a way to cancel your plans to continue to network within your company. If you have a company that you like. Personally, I enjoy Kuehne & Nagel. I see me being there for a very long time. The company is based in Switzerland now. It's a German firm. We are in 100 countries, 60,000 employees worldwide. So there's a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for going anywhere in the world. I think we've got like 70 or 80 offices in the U.S. alone. So, and you can go to any state, basically, minus Hawaii and Alaska.
Yeah, but who cares about that?
Yeah, well, yeah, who cares about Hawaii? Like I said, I got my job through networking. Actually, every promotion I've gotten was through networking. So, again, that's really the biggest thing that I can tell you to do. And then, as far as skills go, especially in today's society, you really need to be multifaceted. You need to kind of offer a whole package, but customer service is always going to be the biggest one, especially in today's society. You're always accessible through email. I was checking them right before I started talking. I'll be checking them again as soon as I'm done. So you really need to be accessible, and you also need to have good oration and written skills, because again, you're on emails all the time. You're always on the phone, or at least I'm always on the phone with people. I'm always on emails. That's just the nature of the beast today. And I'm not, but in my sector, being multilingual is huge. Mm-hmm. So if you can learn a new language, if you thought about learning a new language, if you just kind of had it in the back of your mind for a while, just do it. It's going to be the biggest skill set, or one of the biggest things that you can do for your development for a company, at least for an international company, if that's what you're interested in. And finally, problem solving. You'll really need to be able to think on your feet, especially if you want to succeed. And also some of the lessons that I've learned over time is going back to the problem solving is, like, if you see something that you can do better, speak up. Because if you don't say anything, everyone's just going to stay with the status quo. And then you'll never get the credit for your idea, and you'll just keep thinking, man, we could have done this a different way. And at the same time, like, when you do speak up, you come to your boss with an idea, and then that gets escalated to their boss, and their boss eventually might not get credit for the idea. And that's fine. Because at the end of the day, as long as you continue to innovate and you continue to bring new ideas to the table, they can't ignore that for long. Like, you can get looked over once or twice, but if you bring 4, 5, 6 good ideas on how to make streamlined processes, eventually you'll get the credit that you deserve. Also, again, with today's society, make sure to get everything in writing. If you're on a phone discussion with someone and they say, like, oh, well, I think that we can agree to these kind of terms or these rates, and you don't get it in writing, well, it's not good. You're not going to be able to use that at a later date. So if you make your plans based around this information, it's bad information, basically. And from my side, because I'm a manager, one of the things that I would also recommend if you find yourself in a management field at one point is, if you've got tensions building up between team members, as I did when I came into the position I'm in now, and you don't do anything about it, or you expect it'll just get better, or you think that things will improve over time, they won't. You really need to take the lead and obviously you're the manager, so you have to do this anyway. So, you need to take the lead and really address the problem head on right out of the gate, because if you don't, there's not going to be nice outcome. You're probably going to lose employees. You're probably going to have divisions being created within the employees on people on certain sides, and that's never good. But at the end of the day, you know, just like I said, as long as you network, you should be able to find something. I mean, I know you guys all have at least one friend, right? I'm assuming, and they've got a job somewhere. Hopefully, one of your friends is employed. So, you know, I mean, that's what I did. One of my colleagues from school, you know, she was working at CAN, and I've been reaching out to her for months and months, saying like, hey, I really need something, you know, out of college. I'm basically painting walls with a college degree, and that's not paying my bills. So, what do you have? And then finally, you know, something came up. So, you know, that's really, I feel like that's the biggest thing you can accomplish, is learning how to utilize everyone around you to help build your career and build yourself.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Clayton.
Hey. Good evening. I'm really excited to be here, and especially in such good company with the other alumni. I'm here to talk to you tonight. Dr. M gave us some different topics to discuss, and I'm following that pretty closely, but also I just have some other things that I usually like to talk about when talking to students. Because there are things that when I was in your shoes I wondered about and I didn't hear it said by somebody who was like working in a professional career, or I did and it really meant a lot to me, so I try to pass those things on to you guys too, because maybe you're thinking the same thoughts that I did when I was in your shoes. Just so you know a little bit more about me, so that you help to understand where I'm coming from, is I graduated from Clayton State with a marketing degree in 2008. I worked at a company called Cooper Wiring Devices that's now owned by Eaton Corporation, if you've heard of them. But I had an internship there first, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But I had an internship, and then when I graduated from school, I moved right into their accounting department, which was not my ideal career move. No offense to anyone in an accounting field. I'm sure it's fantastic and you love it a lot, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And what I did want was I always wanted to work at Delta Airlines. I'm from Atlanta, but I also love aviation and all different facets of it, and I love the airline in general. So I knew that's where I wanted to be, and knew I would get there at whatever cost. So I pretty much as soon as I graduated, I was even working at this other company for about 2 to 3 years. I kept applying at Delta because I knew that's where I wanted to be, and I wasn't going to be satisfied until I got there. I eventually got a role in the revenue management department, and that's where I've been since. It will be 5 years in February, and I'm on fire about it. I really enjoy revenue management. And I just think it's a really fantastic fit, not only at Delta Airlines, but just in the specific team that I'm on. So if you want to talk more about that later, I'm happy to talk about it for hours and hours and hours. I won't be here for hours tonight, but maybe we can start the conversation and then end it later. But anyway, so that's where I come from, just as far as figuring I needed to figure out what I could do for Delta, because I knew that's where I wanted to be. But it's very rare that you get to walk up to a company and say, I just want to work for you, give me a job, and they just they hand you a paycheck. So I knew that's where I wanted to be, and so I found out what kind of departments did they have that I would be interested in, and then how could I prepare myself for a role in that group. And so when I was at Cooper Wiring Devices, I actually was an intern in their pricing department, which is their version of revenue management. And then, like I said, I worked in accounting and then worked my way back to the pricing department. So when I was applying at Delta, and I did have some networking involved too, to meet the right people to get my resume in the door. But when I applied to their revenue management department, I had applicable experience, and that really helped out a lot for getting the interview. And then when I had the interview, one thing they ask is, like they do in all interviews, but, why do you want to work at Delta? And my response was, why wouldn't I want to work at Delta? I really want to work here, and this is the only place I want to work. And then I told another interview person, another manager, that they said, I don't know what their question was, but I answered with, if I don't get this job that I'm applying for, I'll just keep applying, and I'll just keep applying here until you give me a job. So the implication was, you might as well just give me a job, because I'm not going away. But they gave me a job, so I didn't have to bother them anymore, so that was really fantastic. So those are the kinds of tips that I like to encourage students to think about, is that you should really look for internships, because that's experience that you can graduate with applicable experience already on your resume. In addition to that, if you get an internship and they like you and you do well, they will likely offer you a job. And that is the whole point of you being educated, is so that you can at some point be employed. So besides the fact that it looks really awesome on your resume and it's just important for you to learn the side of applicable things while you're in school and have that when you exit, is it very oftentimes can lead to some sort of employment that you wouldn't have had available to you if you hadn't already been working in the building. It's a really easy decision for a lot of managers to make if they've got you already sitting in the desk, they've already got you a name tag and an email address, and you're doing a good job, and they have a position, then they might as well hire you. So it's not ever a bad decision to have an internship. I was actually paid during my internship, and they paid me more than I made at my part-time job before, and it was still part-time work. So a lot of people think that internships, are unpaid. Mine wasn't at all, and I actually don't know too many people that had an unpaid internship. I'm sure they exist, and they're still valuable, and they can still lead to a job, but never assume that an internship is unpaid, because it can very likely be a very good situation all the way around. Another thing I like to tell people about is networking. I know that Grady talked a lot about it, and I agreed with everything he said about it. Another thing that I didn't really understand when people talked about networking when I was in school is I always thought that it was networking events. Like you had to go to a convention, and that's where people networked and they had lunch together. I don't know how I thought that, but that's the idea I had in my head. But when I realized later is that networking can actually and more often be the relationships you just have with people, and Grady touched on that. But it's just somebody who knows somebody, and you have a conversation with them about, you have an interest in where they work, or you have an interest in their field, and then that leads to them having an opening later on and you applying and then passing on your resume. And it doesn't always have to be a formal, I'm networking with you and you shake hands. It's just relational, and it grows out of the relationships that you very often already have. So I don't know if any of you didn't know that, but that was eye-opening for me when it actually worked out that way for me, as I saw an opening and I knew somebody that knew somebody. So I just asked if I could talk to that person, and that led to me getting a job eventually. And I was like, hey, I networked, So it's eye-opening when you realize what the reality of things are. I think when you're in school, a lot of things seem very formal and maybe even theoretical, you just don't really understand it. It's not a concrete thing. But then you actually do it and you realize that you've done this thing that everyone keeps talking about. It's not nearly as scary or intimidating as it initially was. So I always thought that was pretty eye-opening. Something else that I did not really know while I was in school is that the marketing degree, I'm a marketing major, is much more than advertising and sales. When you hear marketing, a lot of times you think ad campaigns, and I wasn't very interested in that. I was partially interested in it, but the way that I got turned on to marketing while I was in school was actually with the marketing research class that Dr. Whiting led at the time. And so I liked that it was kind of this merging of math and science and a customer understanding and customer focus. It's kind of an art and science. And that's what initially attracted me to marketing, and that's actually what I do today. It's actually my new job that I've moved into is highly mathematical, and it's highly theoretical math. Most people I work with have PhDs in mathematics. I do not. But what I add to that team that's highly technical is the marketing, understanding the customer and understanding the business needs. And so very oftentimes you can actually bring a lot more to the table to a different group that you initially thought, because sometimes you would look at something and say, oh, that's all math, that's all technical, what can I contribute? But you have to realize that the people that are in those roles, while they might be superstars in mathematics and understanding all the theories, it might be actually very difficult for them to understand the business application and the customer side of things, which for me, coming with a marketing background, it just makes sense to me. It's common sense. And so I've been able to add a lot to the team that way. But I would say that as you're looking at different majors and things, you should just know the holistic view of the whole application of it, not just think the narrow-minded, when you first hear about it. And let me see if I have anything else. Oh, obviously I'm very passionate about what I do. I think that served me very well in my career. And I would say that if you're currently in a job that you're not passionate about, you need to be in that job and learn a lot about it and contribute to the team that you're on. But you should always be looking to something that you will be passionate about and you will care about, because once you get into a role like that and you use the experience of things you've already learned, you're pretty much unstoppable. Like once you get into a job that really fires you up and you get excited about going to, then people notice that and they want to work with you and they want to promote you and they want to give you more work to do because you're just naturally interested in it and it gets you fired up and you want to get going. And I think everyone has something that interests them. And you might think, well, I can't make money doing that. But if you're the only one that cares about it, or you care about it so much that it sets you apart, then you could definitely make money and you could definitely be successful doing it. So that sounds very like pie in the sky, but it's true. If you actually are interested in something, you should pursue it, and everything else will just fall into place for you.
Shoot for the moon.
Yep,
Is that it?
that's it.
No lessons learned?
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you guys. Thank you for coming. My name is Kimberly. I work upstairs from Grady at Coronado. I graduated December of 2013. Professor M. Lord Jesus.
What did I do to you?
I didn't say anything.
I'm innocent.
Currently, wait. I'm sorry, my friends tell me I do that all the time. I didn't know that I do that, but I do. So currently I am in a sales support position at Coronado. I have 7 sales representatives that I currently support. 2 of them are in Atlanta. 1 of them is in Huntsville, Alabama. 3 of them are in Memphis, Tennessee, and there's 1 in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you ever thought that email was antiquated and email is dead, no. Grady mentioned that earlier. He's always checking his email on his phone. It's constant. It is nonstop. But that's how you communicate. That's how you do your work. Basically, do what you need to do. I started my career path in supply chain back in 2005. I was basically thrown into a procurement position, assistant procurement position, and I had no clue what I was doing. And it was literally sink or swim. And it was one person in procurement, and she needed help because we had a lot of locations. So I ended up loving the position, even though I had a very, very tough CFO who was on my neck every day. But she made sure that I knew what I was doing. We had triplicate copy purchase orders. Nothing in the system, triplicate copy purchase order. Everything you did had to go through a manual purchase order. So she taught me the value of checking, rechecking, and then checking again, making sure that all your T's and I's were dotted. So I fell in love with the field at that point, but I was like, there has to be more to this. So I started researching what procurement was all about, and then I started seeing this transportation and logistics and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, what is this? So then I was like, I need to go back to school. Because I started researching how much those people made. Yeah, I need to go back to school to get a degree in that. So that's what I did. And at the time, I was still living in Chicago. And I was considering a move to Georgia where my family was. And so I started looking at schools. And Georgia had Georgia Tech, had, what's that school in Savannah? Georgia State, Georgia Southwestern, or Savannah State, yeah, Savannah State and Clayton State. Well, Georgia Tech was $100,000, $50,000 a year, so we weren't going to Georgia Tech. And Savannah was like far from here, so I was like, we can't do that. So I was like, let me take a look at Clayton State, see what's going on. So they had an open house. I came out and I met Professor M, and we talked about, I know he doesn't probably remember, but we talked about it. And I like made a beeline towards him because he was so engaging and so refreshing about the field. I was like, okay, I need to talk to him. So once I started in June or May of 2012, it's been like nonstop. Everything about it just clicked for me. Like accounting, don't work. Statistics, crickets. None of that made sense to me, but transportation and supply chain, it all made sense. So I'm like, okay, I know this is where I need to be, this is what I need to start doing, so that's what I did. So in August of 2013, with Professor M's help, I started working at Kuninago as a temp. And I talked to Jurgen, who is the big boss out there. I said, can I kind of make this into a internship? It was like I was there a week, and I talked to the big boss about it. He was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I'm like, cool, that was an extra class. I was going to have to graduate the following semester if I didn't do that. So I turned that into an internship and was getting paid for it, amen. And it was great, and I love what I do. I love helping our customers understand supply chain. I was talking to Marsha about it earlier. It was like, your customers, a lot of them are clueless when it comes to logistics and supply chain. I'm like, you a director? I can have your job. Because they don't know what Ex Works terms are. They don't know, some people didn't even know what door to door was. And like Lydia was saying it earlier, she was like, think about it, door to door. What does that mean? So it's a really a fun field. I think another question that Professor M wanted us to kind of talk about was what could I have done differently to prepare myself for the job field? Well, I'm not a talker, believe it or not. And I'm actually kind of shy when it comes to talking to people and the networking and all that good stuff. But what they said is, no, seriously. But what they said is so true. It is so important. And so when I went to my first supply chain conference in 2012, I met a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. And I always tell this story. When you go to those types of conferences, you never know who's going to be there. One, because the conference is very expensive, like $2,000 or $3,000. So big wigs are going to be there. So, but for students, it's about $350, something like that, $350 or $400. Anyway, so I went, and I remember wanting to go to 2 sessions that was at the same time. But I'm like, okay, I don't know which one to choose. So I went in this one session, and there was this older Caucasian gentleman. He had to be about 69 or 70. He was just sitting there by himself. So I asked him, I said, I want to go in this other session over here. Could you take notes for me in this session? And he was like, sure, no problem. And so I'll take notes for you in the other session. So we exchanged, like on your badges, you have this scan thing, and you can scan it on your phone, and it'll bring up all that person's information. So I went into the next session, and I pulled up his information. Y'all, he was the vice president of Boeing. I said, wait, what now?
Better get some good notes.
I did. And I shared them with him. And, it was a really cool meeting. I didn't want to go to Seattle, but, hey, it was what it was. But that's what I'm saying. You never know who you're going to meet in this field. And it's something I talked to my niece and nephew about. This field is huge. Supply chain I'm talking about. I don't know how many people are supply chain majors, but the field is wide open. Like, it's starting to explode at this point. Companies are starting to try to get a handle on their spending, so they need people who understand transportation and logistics costs. They need people who understand total landed costs. How much is it going to cost me to get it from China to my door and everything in between? So they need people who understand that. And one of the lessons I would say that I learned being in the field now is that I wouldn't say that I took my schooling for granted, but I know I could have done better in certain areas and learned more. So I would say that all the classes that you're having here totally going to prepare you, well, for the most part, going to prepare you when you go into, if you're going into logistics field or accounting field or whatever field you're going into. Learn as much as you can. So right now I'm in an MBA program and taking accounting, managerial accounting. And, so I understand that I totally have to understand what I'm doing, because you have to make a B or better in every class. So now I'm getting an understanding, whereas before I'm just doing enough to pass. So I wish I would have learned more then, and then I wouldn't struggle now in that particular course. But let's see. Oh, finally, some soft skills that you're definitely going to need. Definitely what these two guys are saying. Like, communication is definitely key. Teamwork and collaborations are very important. Like how you're on different teams here and you have to collaborate and do different group projects. That's actually what you're going to do wherever you're going to go. You're going to have that teamwork. Matter of fact, I just spoke with one of the managers at Kuninago and asking, what is it that I can do better or do more of in order to move up and have, different responsibilities in another position that I was definitely very interested in, but I didn't get it. He said, come to me and see if there are special projects that our OCAM team is working on that you can help work on from start to finish, so you can understand that analytical piece of what we do. He said, once you do that, you're in, it's gold. So that was very good information for him to tell me. And problem solving is huge. Your customers depend upon you. You are like the face of the company. So they depend on you to solve whatever issues that they're having. And if you can't solve them, they don't really think that you're good for anything. So even if you don't know the answer, pretend like you do, and then get the answer as soon as you can. So I'll tell you, I do it every day. Let's see. I think that's probably about it. Yeah.
There's two stories that Kim's not telling you. One, on the conference that Kim went to, I got at the very last minute a contact of mine in London, academic person. He called me, he emailed me, he said, I cannot make the conference here in Atlanta. I'm willing to give my registration to a student, that the student will go on my place, on my ticket. And Kim just happened to walk by my office, and I said, what are you doing next week? And there she was. Now, she didn't say it, but she took scrupulous notes for this fellow, and she sent them to him, because that was part of the deal, was critique it, tell me what you got out of it. Very pro on his part, and she did a very fantastic job, and you communicate for about a year.
Yeah, we still do.
Between him.
We still do.
The other thing, I had a project with Kuninago, and it was Jurgen and Kai Herbst. Mm-hmm. They had a project, they had a sales issue where the salesmen were complaining that they couldn't go out and sell because they had paperwork to do. And so they came to me and said, how can we solve this problem on getting the sales people to stay out in the field and sell? I said to them, they need to take the paperwork away from them and take the shield away so they don't have that as an excuse not to get out and sell. Put them out in the field and let somebody else do the paperwork. I.e. Kim shows up. She got the internship, it was a new job, untested, unproven. She created the position as a temp, and now she's doing it. So she won over the sales force reluctantly. They didn't want to give up that shield of excuse. And so it's working out pretty nicely. So again, another kudos for you and a feather in our cap and all that stuff. So anyway, you never know.
Well, everyone, my name is Lydia Haw, and I graduated from Clayton State in 2009. I initially was a business administration major, marketing, and how I stumbled upon supply chain was a lot of the classes that I had to take for marketing. They were the same classes that you could take to get supply chain minor. They didn't have the full supply chain program at that time. And I knew nothing about the supply chain. I just thought that it sounded pretty cool to have a minor attached to my undergrad degree. So I enrolled for the minor, and it wasn't until I started taking those classes that my eyes really opened as far as the supply chain. I was one of those persons like the average. You have a need for an item, you go to the store, you go on the aisle that you need to get it on, and you grab that item, pay for it, and you're home. Or you go online, you make a purchase, and you just wait for it to arrive at your doorstep. Never did I think about the process of getting that product to your doorstep, or how did that product get on the shelf at the store. And it was when I started taking my supply chain classes that I learned that. I got those answers of how, they move goods from point A to point B, as him said, door to door. And I was so intrigued with it that once I graduated, I was like, I do want to go to grad school. I went to get my MBA, and I majored with a concentration in logistics supply chain. I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I studied at the University of Dallas. And I finished my degree in 2012. And now I work for a company that is heavily in the supply chain. I work for Georgia Pacific, downtown Atlanta on Peachtree. And for them, I'm a regional sourcing analyst, and I source goods for all of their business product divisions. So my projects that I mainly focus on, they have a spend up to like 10 million or more. And how I landed that job, there's definitely a story there, but I didn't always work in the supply chain, although that was my passion. When I moved to Dallas, I needed a job to sustain me while I was in grad school. And this company offered me a job in accounting. Never had done accounting. That wasn't my passion, but I took it because I needed to pay the bills. It was good money. And in my mind, I said, I'll do this job while I'm in school. And as soon as I'm done with school, I'm going to get this job into the supply chain field. It didn't work like that. I was at this job, and closer to the time for me to graduate, I got a promotion. So I was like, I'll just stay another year. Well, 1 year ended up turning into 2 years. And I was like, I have to get out of this field and move to where my passion was, which was, again, the supply chain. And how I ended here is, I'm sure you all have heard that saying, is it's not about what you know, but about who you know. And the person that I knew, my who, was Professor M. I happened to be home visiting family, and I had been applying for jobs for the supply chain in Dallas, everywhere. And so while I was here, I even said, maybe I should go look into a temp agency and see if they had any openings for supply chain. I did that after meeting with someone. I was on my way back to my relative's house, and I said, I should see if Professor M is in the office today and go and make his day. He has kept in touch over the years. He'll see what you're doing. And so I dropped in to make his day, and little did I know he would make mine. We started talking, and he was asking me, what are you doing? Are you still in accounting? You're not that accountant. And I was like, I know, I'm trying to get out. And he said, well, have you thought about Georgia Pacific? I said, I've researched them. I think I've applied maybe, but nothing came about. And he told me, well, they've employed some of our students. And so he worked with me to make my resume more marketable. I know his touch now. If I can see a resume, I know when Professor M has his hands on that resume. But he helped me to make my resume more marketable, and he even went a step further and said, you know what, my contact that I have at Georgia Pacific, I'll pass your resume on. And he did. And a week later, I received a call from GP HR saying, hey, we would like you to come in for an interview. And because he put his name on the line to open up that door for me, I was determined that I was going to do the rest of the work to make sure that I got in. And I studied for my interview like I was studying for a college exam. I would get off of work, I'm pulling up the computer, I'm looking up behavior-based questioning, I'm writing bullet points, and that really did help me, that preparation, because it was a tedious process in the interviewing. Three separate interviews, but for each of them, I went in there with a high level of confidence. I knew that I was prepared, and everything that I wrote down to prepare myself, every question that I wrote down, they asked me every question. Believe it or not, I felt like, oh, am I just psychic? But they asked me every question, and I was ready to shoot off with an answer. And so, that just, again, goes to show you that networking, I know all of us have said networking, but it really does pay off to network with different people. He opened that door for me. And just think about yourself. If you were in the market for an automobile, and you pull up several different dealerships that are in your area that could get the car that you want, but then you have a friend that comes along and you say, hey, I'm in the market for an automobile, and they say, oh, what are you looking for? Well, I know this person at this dealership. You can ask for this person. They can give you a good deal. I've worked with them. I was satisfied. What are you going to choose? Are you going to go back and just say, oh, let me pick the random person that I see online? Or would you choose the dealership that your friend actually vouched and recommended to you? So, somebody being able to vouch for you, that does go a long way. That they personify those words that you have on your resume. They put those into an actual person, and they're able to vouch for you and say that this person is a good person to hire at your company. So definitely network, find mentors, people that you can just kind of pick their brains on what makes them successful. I still do that now at Georgia Pacific. I have people that I sit down with. Let me set up a meeting with you. What is it that makes you successful? And I pick from different people to, things that I can use in as far as my career and my goals. When I started at Georgia Pacific, I started back in March. I'm still new to Georgia Pacific. I started as a procurement associate. And I wasn't even there 3 months before they offered me the promotion to the job that I'm in now. I didn't have to apply for it. It was offered to me because I got in there and I showed them, hey, I'm here to work. I'm here to work, and I'm going to work my butt off, and it definitely paid off. And I now have my hands on a lot of things at GP. As Grady mentioned, don't say no, say yes. So things that I can volunteer to do at work, I do them. I'm also a lead for college recruiting. And when we go out and we're recruiting at colleges, we're looking for students that show that leadership ability. Everybody won't run the company, but everybody has the ability to lead in your own roles and responsibility. You have that ability to do that. We look to see who's volunteering, who's doing community service, because that shows your initiative and your character. You're doing something that you're not getting paid to do, but you're volunteering your time. Who are the forward thinkers? Who has the ability to come in and want to solve problems or be innovative? Who's going to challenge the status quo? And one thing I do like about GP is that from the CEO on down, you have the right to respectfully challenge the status quo. If there's a business decision that you don't agree with, and you're able to bring your ideas and show how you're creating value, more value with your ideas, definitely it's going to be taken into account and maybe even implemented. So, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Be able to effectively articulate yourself. Communication is definitely a key. Show you're a team player. And these are just some soft skills that you want to hone in on and, definitely sharpen, because, your education or your technical skill may land you the interview, but it's your soft skills, your people skills that's going to land you that job. So, definitely don't discredit, your social ability and things like that. Pay attention to those things and be good at them. And if I would leave you with anything that I've learned is be prepared. Like I said, I studied for my interview like I was studying an exam. Be prepared. There are some questions that everybody's going to ask you. Some companies, they're going to throw out to you, what are your strengths and your weaknesses? We all can holler out what our strengths are, but when you're faced with what are your weaknesses, we tend to shy away from that. And don't shy away from that question. That's not to, Kim has a weakness X by her name. That is, no one is perfect. So have you identified an area where you can improve? And if you have, what are you doing to improve? Your weakness may be public speaking. You may say, oh, I have a weakness of public speaking, but what I'm doing to work on that is when I know I have to speak in front of a large crowd, I rehearse what I'm saying. I may sit my friends down and go over with them. Or your weakness may be, I'm not very organized. So what I do now is I carry a planner. I make sure that I log everything into my calendar. You know, it's something that you've identified as an area that you can improve on, and you are working to improve on it. Most companies are asking behavior-based questions. Tell me of a time when. You know, have you ever been in a situation where, how did you handle it? Be able to articulate what the situation was, how you responded to it, and what was the result, because that's what they're looking for, if you can fully follow through with that. And again, network, have mentors, and although it may sound cliche, never give up. As Marsha said, you know, if you have a passion for a specific career, you know, it may take some time. Be patient, but keep striving forward to get to the career that your heart desires. And that's it. That's my takeaway.
Now, do you want to hear the real story? She came to my office whining like anything. I wanted to get back home. She went through a whole box of tissues. I mean, it was
A whole box. You know what? He adds things in to make it sound better. So, you know.
Hey, by the way, these 4 people are trailblazers for us. They've set the bar pretty high and expectations that their managers have called us and say, I want more people like them. And we've been very lucky with all our alumni, especially these 4. Kunanago is very, very active with us. Georgia Pacific's very active with us. Delta has a lot of our students working there. So, I mean, these are good companies that are coming to us. They're calling us and saying, sending us more, sending more, which is great. So this is what has been put out there as representation to Clayton State as the College of Business. And we're very proud of them, and I really appreciate that. Q&As, let's do some Q&As. First one has to be a good question, then we're going to draw, okay? Go ahead. Speak up so we can hear you.
Hi, I am in my first semester in the master's program in the concentration of supply chain management. My bachelor's is in fashion merchandising, but my career has been in retail for a number of years. So right now I am in visual merchandising leadership roles at Target right now. So I have a lot of experience in supply chain and logistics because I do it on a day-to-day basis, and Target is a major company in regards to supply chain management. So I'm wondering, my question is, how can I coincide the two with fashion and also the supply chain side of it? So that's my.
Did you say you were with Carter's?
Target.
Target.
Yeah, but I
Target.
am looking at Carter's.
With Target, right?
Yeah. I work for Target, but I'm looking into Carter's later on, like by the time I graduate, because I know they're good in supply chain, and also like Nike and H&M and Zara and all those international companies. So my question is, how do you think I can relate the two as far as a company, as far as a job?
Well,
what would be the title of that?
you know, I used to work at Nordstrom.
I work there too.
And buyers, very good position. I would definitely, try to look at something like that, buyers in procurement, how she's in sourcing, things of that nature. Absolutely, because you're involved in the beginning and in the ending stages. You have to manage all that stuff in between. So it's definitely a good. I think that's a good combination. You know what I'm saying? So, you could be the new face of getting who's the name? Isaac, Ms. Ryan, and all those people, better exposure in Target.
And I want to make one thing clear. Our offices at the College of Business are always open for any of you who want to come and talk on anything, career pathways, all the faculty are willing to sit down and talk to you, but you gotta come to us and talk. All right, we're there to help you, we're here to give you guidance, okay? All right, we got a drawing here for the last mug,
069.
069, good number, 69. No? 69?
It's very special.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, one more question, then we're gonna go.
I'm in the MBA program as well, and this is my first semester. I have a question, because I just started, this program and whatnot. I was a little confused in the early on, and like I have a lot of experience in other things, but not a lot of experience in the masters, not in a lot of experience in business administration. And I know you all keep saying like take internships or whatnot, but it's like, now that I'm applying for a lot of internships, and, they don't want me though because I have a lot of experience in other things like childcare or just anything or animal care and stuff. And like I don't have a lot of experience in the business aspect. What do I do about that? Like, because now I know what I want to do and now I know what my passion is. But then there's like, no, you just haven't been doing that. So
Who are you networking with?
Yeah.
Because now, in your position, you don't have the work experience in the business field. But who could vouch for you that, oh, this is what she's doing in my class, and I think that she would be great for an internship with your company? Who are you networking with?
okay.
That would be something that would be good. You know, what clubs around campus that are business related are you involved in that you can network with? You know, you may not have the work experience, but I'm in these clubs and this is what we're doing.
Showing belonging to something is very valuable. Companies know talent when they see it, regardless of what you've done career, business-wise. They're looking for that outside of school scenario, volunteer, social work, belonging to something, leadership in the group that you belong to. All that stuff's very important. Now, I'm responsible for internships for the College of Business. I don't find you internships, okay? I will guide you to the process and I'll help you be prepared. So if you want to see me, send me your email with times to meet and everything about internships, okay? Because they're starting to come about for 2016. But definitely, every one of them says, exercise and talk to people. Don't sit next to somebody in your class for a whole semester and not know who their name is. They are the ones who are going to get the job and pull you into the job. If they don't know you, they ain't going to think of you. That's the whole reason. You're in your own network right now. You're in school to learn and also to build your future network, because those are the people who get the jobs, who pull the other people in. It's networking. It doesn't have to be adults. It's peers. That's why they're here, to let you know what they've done so you can hear it. I can tell you, but you don't listen to me. You gotta listen to me. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming. I know a lot of you gotta go to class. Thank you very much. Good hand for the crew. Thanks for coming.